Good morning. Thank you very much again for joining us for this month's forum. We have a couple of updates, and again, as usual, your time, hopefully, for you to ask us questions, and we'll see where we would end up. I know we have a couple of presentations from accounting, and I know they are extremely busy like all of us, so I want them to go first. James and Francisco, you want to give an update on all of the hard work you are doing in moving the system from one system to another system. So I know that there's a presentation. So James, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? Good morning, everybody. Happy spring. Yeah, I don't have that much to update specifically from the CGA side. We still have a few vacancies that we're working on, so we're still dealing with some backlog. We're making progress. We've hired a few really good people, getting them into place. So looking forward to trying to get kind of caught up. As always, if you have things that really you need to have addressed right away, a couple things you can do: email askcga@ucdavis.edu. I guess I could throw it in the chat. I'll throw it in the chat here in a second, or maybe one of my colleagues could throw that in the chat. Or email me directly, and I can try to help get something attention on something. That's really all I wanted to share, except that, well, I guess the other thing, like Ahmad was alluding to, like many of you, a lot of our focus is currently on Aggie Enterprise and transitioning and planning. And Francisco has a great update that he's going to share here in just a second. So, as we're going through, we're going to be focused in on more and more on trying to get things cleaned up, closed out, and really put to bed. Especially as we're coming up on fiscal close, we need to take this opportunity to really try to get everything as polished as possible, all those overdrafts cleared out, all of those fun things that we like to bother you all about. So that's all I think I have to share. Francisco, did you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I'll take it from here.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody can see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. No, thank you for all the work that everybody's doing to facilitate going to Oracle, especially the mapping of accounts, which is a very cumbersome process and it's time consuming because you have to look at the accounts and see all the attributes of the account in order to be able to migrate it correctly. Okay. But one of the good news within all that is that the UB account is going to disappear. The UB account has been, since I have been in Davis, has been like something that confuses me because it can be an income account, it can be an expense account, it can be an account that is used to transfer funds from different sources. And the major problem that people have is that they actually don't see it. If they look at their expenses or their income, they don't see it. It's just somewhere in the background and you actually have to dig for it. Okay. So this migration to Oracle, one of the casualties that will occur is that the UB account will vanish. It's not really vanished, the balances will be transferred, but how are they going to be transferred is what is important for all of us to understand. Okay. So in the new chart of accounts, the UB account will be converted to several natural accounts. It's not just going to one specific natural account, it's going to multiple natural accounts. So subawards from sister campus from the first, and this is when UCD receives it an award, or A&R receives an award, a sub-award from another campus. And UCD or A&R does the work and they invoice. So from the perspective of UCD, that amount is income. Okay? And in Oracle, the entry will be done directly to the GL. Because remember, in Oracle, PPM is only for expenditures. It is not for income. So therefore, when the sister campus reimburses UCD or A&R, it's like an income to us. And there is the other case, is sub-awards to sister campuses. In this case, from the perspective of UC Davis or A&R, this is an expense. Why? Because we gave some of the work to be done by the sister campus, and they send us a IRR, which is an invoice, and we pay it. And that increases the expenditures of the award. Okay. The sister campus will submit the IRR for reimbursement of their expenses. Sub-awards to other campuses will post as a sub-award expense to the PPM project. It will not post in a separate account where the fiscal officer or the account manager or the project manager will have to search for. So what accounts are going to be used? Okay. This is the group of accounts. So if we receive a payment of an IRR by a sister campus, the entry will be done to 724, and the last 3 digits will identify the campus that is paying us. Okay. Now, if we pay an IRR to a sister campus, which in this case is an expense, the entry will be done to 725, and the last 3 digits will identify the campus from which that reimbursement came from. So therefore, it will go to the project. So in the project, in the expenditures, you'll see that payment and you'll see the charge. So the first thing that we did was that we created a budget category specifically for this type of activity. And it is 06 UC multi-campus participation. Budget can be appropriated to this category, and expenses will post to this category. This category will also appear in the invoice if they are expenditures. So when UC Davis or A&R invoices a sponsor and their expenses that are being reimbursed that came from another campus, they will show up in the invoice as UC multi-campus participation, which is very different than what occurs today. Because what occurs today is hidden. So what will be the process for sub-award to sister campus? A requisition will be set up by CGA for each sub-award to a sister campus. So if we give money, if we give a sub-award to UCLA, we'll create an MPA, a requisition, and associate it to UCLA. Okay, this requisition will become a purchase order once it is approved by the project manager, which is another change that is occurring. All approvals of requisitions associated to sub-awards will route to the project manager to approve. The system will generate the commitments associated to the purchase order. So the moment the project manager approves the requisition and it becomes a purchase order, a commitment will start to appear. Okay, which is one of the problems that occur today. Sometimes the PI or the account manager doesn't know what are the true commitments because they don't see this part. When an IRR is received from the sister campus, it will be processed against that purchase order. And the moment is processed against that purchase order, the commitments will be reduced and the expenditures will be increased. The IRR in its attachments will route to the project manager and the PI for approval. Okay. And when we're talking about the PI, we're not talking the PI at the project level. We're talking about the PI at the award level, who is the one responsible for the award. The amounts in commitments will be adjusted to reflect the amount that posted to expenditures. When the work is completed and a final invoice is processed, the purchase order can be closed. So it's basically the same process as with any other sub-award that is given to institutions outside of the UC system. Okay. And basically, I didn't have a very good illustration of that when we talked about it, but here is a project that we already loaded. And you can see that it has multi-campus participation. There's a budget for it. At the moment, there are no expenditures. But if there were expenditures, it would be reflected here, like with the other category. And this is basically something similar to what today we have as a DS-55 report. Now, what happens to those cases where the other campus did a service for us, or we do a service for them that is not associated to a sponsored award? Okay. There is also another set of accounts for that purpose. Because for that, you should not use the account that it starts with 420, the natural account that starts with 424 or 425. These are the accounts that would be used. 785 when we are crediting, and 780 when we are debiting. Okay, so these are the natural accounts that would be used. For example, if we requested that UCLA does an analysis of a sample, when it is paid to the other campus, we will not use the UB account. The new account will be 780, and the last 3 digits will identify the campus. Okay, so that ball and chain that I had with the UB account will go away. And are there any questions? Because I might have an answer.
Hi, Francisco.
Yes, ma'am.
How will we identify who the assigned fund manager is? Because that's usually information we would get from the 55 report as well.
Okay, the fund manager can be identified because he would become the award administrator or the contract administrator. Okay, we're still working how to show that in the system. Okay, I can actually show you how we can see it today. If you bear with me, I can go into Oracle and basically let let's see. Okay. When you go in Oracle, you there are several sections. This is awards. This is for sponsors.
Francisco, we're still seeing your PowerPoint slide.
Oh, okay. I need to change it. Okay. Can they see the Oracle screen?
Yes.
Okay. This is basically a screen that everybody will have access to. The different modules here depends in your type of access. Okay. Right now I have access to a lot of stuff. There are some options modules that I don't have access to. Okay. So if I go to awards and sorry it's taking so long, I didn't practice for this. Okay. I can actually find who is the account manager because I can actually go to an award and look at the personnel. Okay. This one we haven't set in award manager. Okay. But you can see that there are different roles. Okay. Initially, we set it up with the true PI, but since we were testing some routing, we end-dated him, and I put myself as the principal investigator, so we can test out the routing. The same thing happened with the project manager. We put a new project manager. Now, it's important to understand that from now on, this project manager basically is replacing the account manager. Okay. So the term will be different. Okay. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, thanks.
Next, is there another question?
I don't see anything in the chat either.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Francisco.
So if I could jump back in, we have a little more information to share. I wasn't quite sure we were ready to present it, but I think that our compliance team has some information to share that has to do with our high-risk transfer process to help everybody understand what all they are working on. Amy and Heather, are you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Amy Bernauer and Heather Garcia are on our compliance team and are kind of the first line looking at those high-risk transfers when they come through. So take it away, please.
Sorry, do you have that form for us?
Okay, well, good morning. I wanted to, me and Amy wanted to talk a little bit about the high risk transfers. We've been having a lot of back and forth trying to explain what we're trying to get out of the question. So we thought we would create a cheat sheet. So the compliance analysts, Amy and myself, our goal is to support you and get your high risk transfer approved as quickly as we can. But in order to do that, we need pretty detailed explanations of why we're doing this. If we don't get that, we aren't able to approve it. So we'll either deny the request or we'll start a conversation back and forth to try to gain those reasons. So the more information you provide up front, the less back and forth. Make sure that you fully answer all the questions. And if you have a long email chain, we're not going to search through that entire email chain to try to find the justification. So make sure that you put that on a justification page. And just like a grant proposal, the 120 window doesn't change because the department's short-staffed or has a high workload. And transfers outside of the deadline set is must have an exceptional justification as described by UPOP policy. High-risk cost transfers are huge red flags and will be reviewed during our annual audit. And if the auditor decides that it's not complying with policy, it's not justifiable, it could have huge implications for research funding throughout UC Davis. Okay, so we're going to kind of walk through some of the questions that we've had the most problems with. And we're going to start with question 4, and that is, how did the expense to be transferred benefit this sponsored project?
So this question is referring to the allowability of the expense. It's pretty basic, which we should have for any cost transfer, not just the high risk ones. We need to know specifically how the expense is being transferred really benefits the project that it's being transferred to. It's not enough to just say it belongs on this account, right? You need to say something like, the principal investigator has requested this transfer, and here's the reason for it. If it's requested by someone other than the PI, we need to know how that person knows that it's the right thing to do. That's basically it for that question. It's a pretty basic question, but we really need a full answer for each of these questions.
Okay, we're going to move on to question 5. If any partial transfers are requested, please explain the allocation methodology that applies, how the split was determined, and why that methodology is appropriate.
This also is an allowability question, right? It's why, what makes that split correct? Excuse me. In most cases, when we see these, it's, we bought 6 widgets and 4 of the widgets were used on this project and 2 of the widgets were used on this project. And we know that. It's also allowable in certain cases to allocate according to labor cost or lab space. But those are more limited cases, and there's more details for allocation methodology, what's appropriate, on our website.
Okay, moving on to question 6, why were the expenses not posted to the correct account initially?
So we want an actual reason. It's not enough to say we're correcting an error, right? We need to know how the decision was made to charge them to the initial account, and why the error has occurred, and why it's taken more than 120 days to find and correct that error. And if the expense occurred before the correct account was set up, why was an advance account not used?
Okay, question 8. In what way were the circumstances out of control?
And question 7, Heather.
Oh, 7, sorry. 7, what was the extenuating circumstance that delayed the transfer for more than 120? Didn't we just say that one?
It's sort of on both of those questions. I mean, you want to identify when it was discovered and what the circumstance was that prevented your reviewing it and catching the error before the 120 days was up. And if there's documentation, we need that documentation, right? If there's something that explains why, you have an email from the PI that says to put it here, go ahead and include that in your backup.
Question 8. In what way were the circumstances out of the control of the department?
So we need a specific reason why it was out of your control, right? It was, you asked UCPath you sent the request within the time period, but it wasn't completed by them timely or had a key entry error. And, if that's your reason, we need backup for that, right? We need your email to UCPath. We need, UCPath acknowledging that there was an error in entry. Did you follow up on the request, right? If not, why didn't you follow up on the request, right? If the sponsor had to approve a rebudget for this to be an allowable expense on that account, that's okay, but you need to, have backup for that. If you had requested an advance account, but SPO denied it because they didn't, they weren't confident that the funding was guaranteed, or, for some other reason, include that.
Okay, question 9, and this is by far the most back and forth question of all of them. If the circumstances were not out of the control of the department, what steps have you taken to ensure that all cost transfers will be processed timely in the future? And when were these steps implemented, or when will these be?
And for this question, we're really looking for specific process changes or control measures that you're taking within your department. It can't just be, I'm taking better notes. It can't be, I'm doing this. It's got to be something that is being utilized by your department in order to better keep track of these, so that we can, try and prevent them from happening in the future. They have to be already implemented, or we need a specific, planned date for implementation. And, things that are ambiguous, or we're planning to hire more staff, that's not, that could be something that happens 6-8 months in the future. And meanwhile, we're still having the same problem with high risk cost transfers having to be done. So we want something specific and something that's going to be used by the entire department. Things like using a log on a shared server, so everyone has access to it, everyone's using it to track payroll transfers through to completion, right? I've confirmed that this showed up on the ledger. If you have existing staff that you're planning to train them on how to use UCPath, so that they can serve as backup when you don't have enough time to take care of it yourself. We now have a cooperative agreement with another department that we're going to help each other when we get backed up, things like that.
We also need to make sure that the information you provide is adequate information so that a third party would understand it, such as an auditor or future staff, if you are to leave the department. Now we're going to go over a few justifications that are deemed insufficient. And this may help you to answer number 9.
So really common ones that we see are that we're moving this to fix an error or to correct, where the original charge went. That's the reason that you're doing it. That's not a justification. Also common are
Amy, I'm sorry. Are you sharing a different, we're still seeing the question page? Are we still supposed to be looking at that, or do you have something different?
I don't have, well, I do have. We have a tip sheet that we have put up on our website.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought there was something else we were going to be looking at.
No, it's okay. Heather shared the site address for our forms. The CGA forms website is in the link, and in the chat rather. And if you look at where it has for our the high risk transfer pre-approval form, in the description, there's a link that says tips. What did it say? I have it here.
Okay, great.
It says tips for high risk justification. So it has all of these things that we've just been discussing, suggestions for what we're looking for. And then all of these insufficient examples are on there too. So then there's also, so-and-so told me to move it. So-and-so didn't tell me to move it in time. The charge belongs to this account. The previous admin or account manager did it and we don't know why and they're not here anymore. No one's been looking at this account. There's no money left, so the PI wants the expense on a different grant. Probably 75% or more of the ones that come through say we're short-staffed or we have too much work and we weren't able to get it done. That by itself is not a sufficient justification. The grant has already been reported as fully spent and we need to use up the remaining balance. I moved off too much and I need to move some expense back. And the PI is on leave and unable to review ledgers. Somebody needs to be reviewing the ledgers while the PI is out. Somebody who knows what's going on. So those are just common things that we see that are not allowable as justifications. They're not an extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, and one thing that we want to share with you is to minimize the number of emails. We ask that you don't send your request more than once. It causes duplicate tickets and they don't always get matched up. If you have questions, reply to the service ticket now email with that case number. Don't add other staff to your CC lines. A lot of times their responses aren't in the ticket system, then they're outside, and then we have to try to match those up. When your ticket is fully approved and we say you're good to go, no need to say thank you. It reopens the ticket and we think there's more to be done on that ticket. Another reminder is that Amy and I are not UCPAC experts in any way. Our role is to review the high-risk request and determine if it's necessary and justified. We can't help you decide how much should be transferred, how much benefits will follow, and we can't help you with the DR form itself. So we just wanted to throw that out there. We'd also like for you to comment on how we can improve the process or the form. If there's things you need to have clarified on the form or you would like added, that'd be great. We're always looking for ways to improve, such as putting out this tip sheet on the website now. And does anybody have any questions?
One question that came in there, Heather, is what's our expected turnaround time on these requests?
I would say within 5 days, unless we need additional information. Every time we ask for something, it adds a day or so of back and forth onto that. That's the reason to get that. That's the reason to get the justification right the first time and provide all those necessary details. Any other questions? Correct. If you haven't heard back from us in a while and you just want to check in and see where it's at, please reply to that ticket email. If you reply outside of the ticket email, again, it may not be matched. We have to make note in the ticket that the email sent to us was outside of the ticket. So again, it's just more housework on our side, more delay.
And don't, if you can, don't, if you can, don't change the subject line at all, because it'll come through as a new ticket if you add anything to the end of the subject line, or so just reply and it'll add your question or your request for follow-up or your additional detail or whatever onto the existing ticket instead of creating a new ticket for it.
And Katie, yes, that is the correct email address.
Yeah, CPA-compliance, yeah.
@uca.edu.
I had a quick question about the advanced account.
Mhm.
So if we haven't received like an award in time, I mean, submitting for an advanced account really puts all of that on the department if the award doesn't actually come through. So I'm just wondering, is that justifiable that, you know, the money was received late? And that's why we're putting on this account. Because I feel like there have been times where I've gotten the notice of award, but the funds just have not come in, and like we're running really behind. I mean, sometimes it's been over like a year. There's just an issue with the contract. So I just wanted to make sure that was justifiable in that sense.
Well, we asked that you have gone through SPO initially to try to set up any kind of advance account ahead of the award. A lot of times if you have a notice of award, I believe that's the basis for advance account, but that's something that you would have to follow up with SPO.
Okay.
For compliance, we want to see that you've attempted to follow policy and procedures, that you've sought out an advance account and it's either been approved or been denied. If it's been denied and you have award expenses, don't put them on another award. Please put them on a department account and track them that way. And then when your award is available, then you can transfer out of your department account into the new award account.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Any other questions? Okay, great. I'll hand it back over to Ahmad.
Thank you very much, Heather and Amy. Let's see. If there's nothing else for accounting, we would go to presentations from sponsored programs. Kelly on the proposal side.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Just one moment. All right, so this morning I have just a couple of topics I wanted to share with you guys in preparation for the new upcoming fiscal year. The first one is that the state indirect cost rate is going to increase to 35% of MTDC for all awards beginning July 1st of this year. And if there's a call made from a call published March 1st or later. So the key dates to remember: July 1st and from calls on March 1st or later, calls issued March 1st or later. So again, goes up to 35% July 1st. That's item number one. The second item I wanted to bring to everybody's attention also has to do with state of California agreements and limitations to full cost recovery. I say state of California, we've seen it apply most of the time to state of California, but I should correct myself and say it really applies to every agreement, although it's been the state lately. If UC Davis recovers our full F&A on a project, then the subs are able to recover their full federally negotiated F&A rate as well. However, if we are limited in our F&A recovery per the sponsor, then subs are subject to that same limitation. So if we're limited, they're limited. The exception here would be that in some state of California calls, it clearly states that we are limited as sort of the prime submitter, but subs can recover their full federally negotiated rates. In those cases, it's okay to give the subs their full federally negotiated rates. We need to make sure, though, that the call specifically states that the subs are able to recover their full rate. An email from someone at the state of California saying, oh yeah, sure, it's fine, really isn't going to work. So again, we have to default to that call. So if the call doesn't specifically state that subs can get their full rate, they are also limited as well. So I want to make it very clear to everybody, an email from someone at the state is not going to suffice for allowing full cost recovery for those subs. Does anybody have any questions about that? No. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. I'll be on the duration of the call, so if you have any questions throughout the rest of the presentations, please let us know. Otherwise, thank you so much.
I want to say something regarding this issue of recovery of indirect that you just talked about. Let's see, we still see your.
You want me to go back up to it?
No, just no, you can close it. That's fine.
Okay.
I don't need that. So yeah, to elaborate on this issue of if we know whether we recover full indirect or not, again, I'm going to say it one more time. If we recover our applicable indirect, and applicable indirect in most cases is our federal negotiated rate. In the case of state, as Kelly just said, starting from July 1st, is 35%. So that's the applicable indirect. If we get that full number, let's assume we have a sub-award to Stanford. If there's an award from federal government, we get 60%. Stanford's indirect might be 70%. No problem, they would get theirs. But if for whatever reason we are not recovering from even, let's say, NIH, there is a restriction which says that this award is subject to 25%, for example. It really doesn't make any sense for Stanford to get their full indirect either. They would get 25%. So that limitation is there. Now, focusing on state, we have had some problems recently that they weren't giving us on specific awards or full applicable indirect, which right now is 30%. And discussions between the department, the PI, and state going back and forth, we became aware that at one point they had gone to UCOP, and UCOP had said, basically they had told them that, listen, this is, at the campus level, you have to listen to what they say. And OP was not saying anything more than that. So the response coming to us from the department was that OP doesn't have any problem. In one case, the sub-award was asking for a 3-digit indirect cost when state was giving us like 20%. And the PI was telling us, well, OP it doesn't have any problem. So why is it an issue at Davis that we are not allowing a huge indirect on the sub? And we had to hold the line. So the bottom line is that since we were not getting full indirect from state, we were not able to give a higher indirect to the sub. So that's really important. I want to make sure that you guys, if you are working on these type of things, you don't fall into that trap that going back and forth with state and getting an email from somebody from state saying that, well, you guys figure it out. And in some cases, the emails had said that the restriction on recovery of indirect is on UC Davis and not on the subs, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So please be careful about that. Any questions about any of that? Okay, thank you very much. On the award side, Grace, do you have any updates?
Yes, just a few reminders. We still are down to 2 team leads. So I am manning the awards inbox. So anyway, I apologize for any confusion or mistakes. That's all on me. So just a few reminders there. If you have update requests, reach out to the analyst that was assigned in the original assigned email directly. Don't email awards because I don't have any knowledge. I would have to follow up with the analyst myself. So just go directly to the analyst. And for ATF awards, we are setting up the project in Cayuse. If we get this award directly from the sponsor and we realize there was no proposal submitted, and then we will reach out to you to ask you to submit that IPF. In the short project title, please do put that project title so we can easily associate the incoming IPF with that project title. And one more thing is for reports. I know that there are a lot of reports due in March and April and then June. You can select me personally if you need to name an AOR or a signing official. So if you don't know who to put down as the submitter, if required in a report, you can just put my name. And that is all.
Thank you, Grace. On the issue of vacancies and not having enough people and so on and so forth, James talked about the vacancies that I know they have. Therefore, anything we do would be delayed. In our office, out of around roughly 40 people that we have in our office, right now we have 7 vacancies. And that's like roughly 20%. It's 1 out of 5. So everybody is overworked like you are at the department, and not enough hands to take care of things. So we need your patience as projects go forward. Any questions about anything we have talked about up to now? I don't see anything in the chat. Perry, do you want to talk about the training, sponsored program training, please?
I think my internet is unstable, so I believe you just passed it to me, Ahmed. Is that true?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
Please.
sorry about that.
No problem.
So I'm going to put in the chat information about some classes we have coming up in April. And so let me just do that. So the 2 classes on April 6th, from 1 to 4, we have a class called Processing Subawards in Cayuse. That class is part of the Electronic Research Administration Certificate Series, ERA Certificate Series, and it's offered through the UC Learning Center. And on April 27th, we have a Research Administration Workshop, which is a new series. We're offering classes quarterly, and we're just seeing how they are received, and to consider whether we'll add these to our regular recurring classes. And the one coming up in April is on submitting NSF proposals in Research.gov. And you can sign up for that by writing SPO training at ucdavis.edu. And that's it for my updates. Thank you, Perry.
So any questions about anything from anybody? As I don't think we do have any other presentation today. I don't see anything in the chat, and I don't see anybody wanting to share any questions. So maybe there is nothing else. If not, let's see, it's almost 9:25. We can go back and serve.
Wait, there's one. I think there's one question in the chat.
Okay.
There's an Aggie Enterprise question. The object consolidations have to be cleared in order to transfer over. I can't answer that. Is anybody on the line? We'll have to get Francisco to speak to that maybe next time.
Anything else? Okay, last call. Thank you very much. See you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.